Vielen herzlichen Dank, Tim Martina Schäffer. Hey, Waka Eke Noir. Wir sind alle im selben Boot. We are all in the same boat, the Maori people in New Zealand say. Welcome to the call, Peace, an Outcry of Life, with very wonderful guests. Willkommen. Ich spreche jetzt in Deutsch weiter für ein paar Minuten zu dem heutigen Abend mit sehr besonderen Gästen. Ich möchte ganz kurz nur sagen, wie ist das zustande gekommen? Nämlich, und ich bitte Sabine auf die Bühne zu holen. Ich war vor einigen Wochen in Tamera in Portugal im Projekt von Sabine Lichtenfels und wir haben gesprochen über, ja, was los ist in der Welt und wie uns das betrifft und hatten den Impuls, ja, wenn wir diesen Summit haben, dann wollen wir hinschauen, hinhören, mit den Menschen sein, mit denen wir auch im selben Boot sind. Genau. Und das ist es schon von mir. Ich mag Sabine bitten, noch ein paar einführende Worte sagen, bevor es richtig losgeht.
Ja, danke Martin und danke für diese Einladung. Das war ein sehr intimes Gespräch, was Martin und ich geführt haben über die aktuelle Weltsituation. Und ich kann sagen, der 7. Oktober, als das Massaker geschehen ist in Israel-Palästina, hat mein Leben verändert, weil ich sehr, sehr viele Freunde habe, Bekannte, sowohl auf der palästinensischen Seite als auch auf der israelischen Seite. Und wir haben Pilgerschaften gemeinsam durchgeführt, durch Israel, durch Palästina, durch die Westbank, mit der großen Vision, wir weigern uns, Feinde zu sein. Und wir hatten damals den Slogan, ein Friedensforschungsdorf statt einem Panzer. Und ich habe so viel Schmerz gesehen seitdem, dass man nahe war an einer Hoffnungslosigkeit. Und ich glaube, damit haben wir auch alle zu tun. Und diese Frage, was ist wirklich jetzt unseres? Wie können wir unsere Stimme erheben? Wir spüren, dass diese Thematik nicht einfach alleine eine Frage von Middle East ist. Es ist ein globales Thema. Haben wir die Chance, den Krieg zu beenden oder nicht? Und ich bin sehr dankbar, Martin, für euer Engagement, dass wir heute dann den Sami Awad aus Palästina bei uns haben und Gabriel, der die Sulcha damals organisiert hat in Israel und Kosha uns moderieren wird. Ich bin sehr, sehr gespannt auf dieses Gespräch und Charles Eisenstein wird dazu kommen. Wir alle waren und sind verbunden mit dieser Frage, was ist eigentlich globaler Friede und ist er möglich oder nicht?
Hm. Danke, Sabine.
Hm.
Ja, ich bitte euch, Kosha jetzt auf die Bühne zu holen. To the English speakers, we will have there is a button in the bottom where you can get the German translation, but we will switch to English very soon. Also äh, es wird gleich Englisch weitergehen. Ich möchte vorher noch Danke sagen an Kosha Joubert, du bist gerade in Südafrika, in deinem Heimatland und du nimmst dir diesen Abend Zeit, obwohl du eigentlich im Urlaub bist, ja, hier mit uns zu sein und diesen Abend zu moderieren, weil wir haben uns so reingespürt und gedacht, wow, wer kann dieses Thema halten und was das bedeutet. Und da bist uns nur du eingefallen gleich. Und insofern danke, Koscha, Joubert, die du beim Pocket Project so viel Erfahrung hast mit globalen Traumata, mit diesen emotionalen Zuständen, mit dem Bezeugen von Schwierigem auch. Und ja, genau, mag jetzt an dich übergeben und vorher noch Eva bitten, kurz reinzusprechen oder reinzuschauen und wie man jetzt auf Englisch dabei sein kann hier auf Zoom.
Ja, genau. Wir haben nämlich heute tolle Unterstützung zum Dolmetschen und von Johannes und Alisa. Und wenn du auf Deutsch eine Übersetzung haben möchtest, dann gehst du unten auf Dolmetschen und wählst dann Deutsch aus. Ich schreibe es auch in den Chat. Also einmal unten klicken auf Dolmetschen und du wählst Deutsch. Und dann wirst du die ganze Zeit von Englisch auf Deutsch eine Übersetzung hören. Genau, das war es auch schon von mir.
Danke, Eva. Und danke, Kosha, die du auch präsent bist mit 2 Interviews, die du führst, auch beim Summit mit Bayo Akumulafe und mit Christiana Figueres. Danke für das.
Ja, schön daran erinnert zu werden. Ja, also erstmal schön hier bei euch zu sein. Oh, I'm switching to English now. So special to be with you all and a warm welcome from me. Martin said something that sounded a bit as if I would be able to hold the topic or host the topic. And I need to say that the theme that we're addressing today is breaking my heart. And I think in some ways it is meant to break our hearts. And that we come here together in our humanity with grief and also allowing our inability to hold what is happening. And as Sami said in our pre-conversation, maybe not to move to passivity and withdrawal from that place, but to move towards the question of what does our heart ask us to do? So I would just like to take a moment to introduce these wonderful people who are going to be speaking. I'm only here as a support person in the background, but Sabine Lichtenfels, I think many of you will know her, the co-founder of the Eco-Village and Peace Research Center, Tamera in Portugal, who's a peace activist, a theologian, and director of the Global Love School. Isn't it great that a global love school exists? She's a source of female peace knowledge. And I remember as a very young woman reading Sabine's books and being deeply inspired by that female peace knowledge, and has been committed to peace in the Middle East and Colombia and to deep cooperation with nature for many decades, probably all of her life. I think that's why she's here. Sami Awad is the founder of the Holy Land Trust, an organization that works for the dignity and justice of all people living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Jews, Christians, and Muslims. He works for peace through nonviolent activism, personal transformation, and spiritual trauma work. Sami's grandfather was killed in 1948, and his father became a refugee at the age of 9. And Sami is if you haven't met him yet, you'll meet him tonight. And he comes from a long tradition of nonviolent activism, and his heart has grown big in that process. Gabriel Meyer is a musician, peace worker, writer, and he follows in his father's, Marshall Meyer's, footsteps as a spiritual activist and radical prayer leader. He was given the honorary title of true representative of the Jewish people by the late Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi. But he also learned from Zen Roshi Baron Glassman, Thich Nhat Hanh, had a private audience with the Dalai Lama, studied with Sufi sheikhs and shamans. And he co-founded the Sula Peace Project in 2001 and is currently a coordinator of the Defend the Sacred Global Alliance. And lastly, we have Charles Eisenstein, who doesn't much like to be introduced, but
he's not here yet, so we can introduce him as we feel.
Yeah, but I'll just say a few words. He's not here yet, or he is.
Charles, in America, in the US, they have summer solstice, summer time has just started, so he mixed up the 1 hour. So he will come in half an hour. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. But let me just, because that's great, because then I can introduce him to you without him noticing. So he's a philosopher, an author, and a visionary of the more beautiful life our hearts know is possible. And I think what most touches me about Charles is that he finds words from a stream of inspiration, and so often finds fresh words that bring fresh insights into situations. So I'm sure we will experience that with him today. So Charles has his own timing, as you already heard. He will join us. He might also leave a bit earlier today.
No, this not.
Great. Wonderful. Things are changing all the time. And as Martin already said, I'm in South Africa at the moment, where electricity comes and goes. And if I do drop out, Martin will seamlessly step in. But I hope I will be able to stay here with you. Yeah, and with that, we come to the most important aspect of the evening, which is you all. So you are the real, the important element here today. We are here for you, and you are here for us. And we are going to be building tonight a witnessing community. So maybe I just want to invite you all to move to the gallery view for a moment. And just to take a moment to look at each other, and you might go anywhere, you might see multiple scenes of people, but just take a moment to notice each other. And also notice how you are here. It would be great if you could mute yourself. Thank you. A little miracle stream running through our space. And just taking a moment to realize that none of us is here alone. We are here as part of this community of people who cares enough to take your time and come here. Yeah, and let's also take seriously that our bodies are the instrument through which we witness. So I invite you tonight to keep a part of your attention with your embodiment, and notice when you contract, when strong emotions come up, when your heart widens, when you ground. So really keeping your own presence as a related part of this community with you through tonight. Yeah, and with that, I would invite Sabine and Sami and Gabriel just to greet us once before we start with the first round of hearing from each of you more deeply, but just to have all your voices in the space. Maybe Sami, if you would just say.
Yeah, thank you, Kosha, Martin, and the whole team for inviting us, for creating the space. Thank you, Sabina, for initiating it with Martin as well in Tamera, a place that I love and miss being in. And yeah, just wonderful to be with you tonight. And thank you for this heartwarming opening. I bring you greetings from Bethlehem, Palestine, where I live now. And I look forward to our conversation with each other tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gabriel.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be with all of you in these difficult times, and to hold the paradox of a beautiful time and difficult, excruciating times of violence, to be together in this way. So thanks for everyone for making this possible, and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, maybe just before because now we're ready to go into the deepening of the conversation, just to invite you all that we will possibly turn off the chat or really use the chat very, very minimally while we listen to your voices, while this conversation unfolds. And later there will be a space and a time where we hear everyone's voices through the chat. So just inviting you to, us to use the chat with a high level of awareness. Thank you. Yeah, and I think, Sabine, you will open the conversation for us. So I will hand over to you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for all the introduction. And it's such a gift that we can make it happen, to meet together and to really have space and time to deeply listen what is ours in this challenging time where we are in, and to feel already now the spirit of community. And I invite that we leave for a while our worldview or opinions a bit behind and come to this frequency where we listen together what is ours in this challenging time, where we see it's one planet, one earth. And so I also want to invite the voice of the earth, the voice of the waters. We are going towards the direction of the World Water Day, and that we as humans are not alone. And how can we open for a space that we figure out what is peace about? Is there a possibility to find inner and outer peace, and that we rise our voice not against someone, but in unity and compassion? I hope very much that this time together will serve our trust and decision, where we know what is ours in this challenging time. And thank you, Kosha, for your introduction of the whole.
Yeah, and maybe Sami, you're closest to the heat of the situation. So maybe you could share with us what it has been like. I know you have been invited to many panels like this. And yeah, for us to offer a space of deep listening that maybe allows you to also share from a deeper space about your experience and also maybe your perception of the situation at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I will say it's close to the heat and in the heat as well. The West Bank, where I live, has also received its share from Israeli military attacks and army attacks. Actually, a young 14-year-old Palestinian boy was shot today at a checkpoint, which is less than maybe 500 meters from my house. And he was on a bicycle trying to stab 2 Israeli soldiers at the checkpoint. And we even heard the gunshot from where I live. So it's very real for us. And then for me, just this idea of a 15-year-old boy knowing that his life will end, ready to ride on his bicycle and take 2 knives and try to stab soldiers, is just, again, part of that story, part of the tragedy that we live in. The situation is very close to me because I have a family in Gaza. My mother's family is from Gaza. And I have an uncle who's 88 years old, an aunt who's blind and deaf. And we were very worried about them. As you could know, their house was destroyed. They had to move to 5 different locations. And just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to get them out from Gaza to Egypt. And it's a moment of celebrating that they were able to get out, and at the same time as we're learning to practice carrying the wounded heart of knowing that hundreds and thousands will die after they left, that they will not have the chance to get out. For me, I want to share that, as many of you know, October 7th is not when it started, and it is very important to remember this. October 7th is a tragedy amongst many, many tragedies that have happened in the last 75 years, even in the last 100 years of the existence of this conflict. But I think what happened until October 7th was that we, as Palestinians and Israelis, and also the international community, sort of accepted a certain framework of what this conflict should be like and look like, accepted a certain level of violence, accepted a certain level of atrocities that happen, land confiscation, home demolition, a killing here and there, a bombing here and there, and it became normal. The violence became quite normal to us. We hear it on the news and we just move on. And October 7th, I think, brought a shock to that normalized reality that we created. That, yes, many of us, Gabriel and myself and Sabine and you, Kosha, have been involved in this situation for many years, because we understood that we have to reach some peace, we have to reach some hope, some sense of justice, so that something like October 7th does not happen. But then October 7th did happen. And I think the tragedy was my first reaction of after October 7th was Gaza is going to be destroyed. That nothing is going to hold this particular Israeli government from committing an atrocity that has been unprecedented. I called my cousin immediately after and I said, we need to get you out from Gaza. You're going to die if you stay in Gaza. I felt that this was not going to be just another round, and sadly the Israeli political establishment will try to take advantage of this to the fullest to try to create a new agenda, a new reality on the ground here. And then so for me, this tragedy is a wake-up call for all of us. It's a wake-up call to really understand that this is a situation that's been going on for many, many decades, and that all of us are fully engaged in this because of the mass violence that happened on October 7th and after. But we should have been involved before, and we definitely need to be involved after. At some point, there will be a ceasefire. At some point, there will be some agreement to exchange or release hostages. My hope is that we don't fall back into our normalized attitude when that happens. And I'm not saying that this is a unique situation. There are many, many conflicts that are happening. I was just listening to news of Sudan and what's happening there today and the violence taking place there. So it's not about ignoring, but it's understanding that I feel that the situation in Palestine and Israel is so precise and so clear, as Tamara would say, it's like an acupuncture point, that once we are able to create a new reality of peace and justice and equality in this land, it will have a ripple effect globally. If we can do this peace work in the situation that seems to be the most impossible to create, then we will see change happen around the world. And this is why the international community is very important to play a role. This is why the German community is very important to also play a role in what's happening here.
Yes, Sami, so before we move on, I would just like to invite all of us to revisit some of your words for a moment. You know, because some of the experiences you shared of the 14-year-old boy today were so strong, you know, that it's very challenging, I think, for our bodies to actually allow these the words to touch us. And I think that is natural, but it's good that we notice that. You know, everything that led to, I remember that Thomas Hübel once, one of the things he said that I loved is that when we're in our full potential as humanity, we will feel when we go to bed, if even one child goes to bed hungry, that our nervous systems will feel that. So, you know, just to acknowledge the level of pain that is present in what you are sharing. Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that touches me is this the constant level of violence that becomes normal, and how that is maybe part of all our lives in a certain level, but how very specific this has been in Palestine and Israel. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's just give you a moment to kind of arrive, even without speaking, that we just feel you for a moment more fully, more deeply. And I don't know whether there's more you would like to share just about how you are now, or...
Yeah, well, what's coming to me, and just building on what you said, is let us also connect with the deep pain and loss that is being experienced in this land now. Just to imagine there are families tonight that are mourning and that are crying and that are grieving. There are families that are seeing their children die from starvation and hunger and lack of medication. There are families that are worried about their family members who were taken into Gaza, Israeli families, and are agonizing every day and every night, wondering what's going to happen to them. The Western media seems to play a numbers game and belittle the emotional reality of what's happening here. And maybe they can't handle it. But I think a group like this can really hold that space of that deep pain and confusion and fear that is so prominent in this land, the sense of hopelessness that exists by many people in this land. And so for me, it's to really just connect that there are human beings like us, born like us, who have hopes like us, who have aspirations like us, who have dreams like us, that are losing everything in this exact moment that we are talking with each other.
Yeah. Thank you, Sami. Yeah, and I'm looking at you, Sabine and Gabriel, just to feel, Sabine, whether you might want to come in before Gabriel speaks.
Yeah, it's very, very, very touching to hear Sami like this. And I remember when I met Sami the first time when we were traveling to Israel, Palestine after the second Intifada to look what can ours to be, to contribute. And I met a Palestinian group who were so much saying we have to look beyond fear. What is our vision? And Sami described a kind of Palestine, a free Palestine with decentralized communities. And I can say I agree with everything what Sami shared now. And just to face the pain and to face the grief without having a real answer, for me as a German woman, is very, very, very important. And I'm very thankful that we are here also with a lot of people from Germany, because I feel we are facing trauma from different aspects. And I know when I heard the first time as a young girl about the Holocaust, I promised myself I won't stay silent if I see injustice. But at the moment, what does it mean to not stay silent and not to take side, but to be clear? And there are so many, I feel often that trauma is meeting trauma. And especially the Germans, they feel such a guilt of the past. And we cannot help from our own power. But first we have to face the pain, to be with the grief. And from there, I still dare to ask again and again, what is the possibility to end this history of thousands of years of culture of war? Is there something like a seed? Is there something like a ripple effect? And there it cannot happen without our opening. And I cried so much. I was really often, very often in the night, I'm awake with this question, what is mine to do? And it's not about worldview. It's not about political left or right. It's about the compassion. And from there, what is ours? And so thank you, Sami, for sharing it in such a, and that you still have hope. What is your power of nonviolence from where you are acting, from where you are speaking? And I met so many Israelis who are beyond taking sides and who are really on this level. Let's find an answer. How can we stop violence? And how can we overcome a certain kind of identification and overcome worldviews? I'm receiving a sign here. Shall I speak German? No.
No, everything is good.
Okay.
You are perfectly synchronized. Yeah.
And just maybe to end with this, on a human level, I can say we felt so deeply with all what we tried. And on the other side, I feel there is community of life. And this community of life wants us to figure out who is in this compassion for life. And from there, building a decentralized movement. But I don't want to go too quick to the answer, but this is what keeps me alive day by day by day, to answer how can we build, like nature, community in trust and truth, and to raise our voice and not to stay silent because of fear. And from there, and not to create hatred, but compassion, truth, trust, transparency.
Yeah, thank you, Sabine. And you were just speaking about how many Jewish people you've met who grow beyond, who are able to host even their not knowing. And I think, Gabriel, you are coming from a lineage of Jewish people who've been practicing. So over to you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Sami, for witnessing so close, 500 meters to killing, today, to death. You're right there, and it's so precious to have you close in the heart and also have you close to where it's happening. So I feel with you, we have an ambassador of the heart of the world where disaster is going on. So I feel a privilege to be your brother, your friend. Thanks for being there for us and maintaining your integrity with all your family, what's going through. Yeah, I would like to take it to my own lineage, because the word for peace in Hebrew and Arabic, it doesn't come from the, sorry, they're asking me about English. There, okay. There was a Zoom techno issue, sorry. Okay, so the word for peace in Hebrew and Arabic is shalom, salam, and it has nothing to do with the Latin pax romana, which is where the word peace comes from. And the Romans used to have a very particular way of making peace, you know that, and how they used to charge taxes and exile people and have agreements. And that is kind of the peace that we've been trying to deal, and that way it's not successful, because it has nothing to do with indigenous shalom and salam. The word shalom in Hebrew comes from the word shalem, which means whole, meaning that it's like a puzzle, and every single piece of the puzzle has to be voiced and heard and shine and be happy for there to be a shalem, a wholeness, a salam, a peace. So that is more of the concept that I think people like us should be trying to get people to understand, that it's not going to be brought about in a piece of paper with a bunch of people with ties signing an agreement. It has to include the agriculture and the culture and the waters of the land and the grandmothers of the land and the people of the land. Same as in my lineage, my father's teacher, Martin Buber, the philosopher, was saying out loud to the Zionist movement in the 1920s that we have to learn Arabic as Jews in Israel. We have to learn the culture of Palestine. We need to get close to them. We need to create a binational state. This was in the 20s. And it never succeeded, because all his group, including Albert Einstein and all these people, were treated by the Zionist movement and they were thrown out. But this is the view that I think we can hold together, and the concept of shalom and salam, which is closer to voicing every single piece of the puzzle, needs the voice to be heard from the sea to the Mediterranean, and not to be afraid as Jews to be compassionate of children of other peoples. You know, they say in our tradition, kosher, you know, the word kosher, halal in Islam, is when food cannot be eaten. So the stork, according to Judaism, is a non-kosher animal. And the student goes to the teacher, rabbi, and says, how come the stork is so devoted? It has so much love for her children. And the rabbi says, because it only has love for their own children. And that's why it's not kosher. And the moment we start having compassion for all the creatures, all the beings who live, and like Sabine said, not just the humans, we need to ask for counsel to the rivers and the mountains and the elders of Palestine and Israel to help us. And the moment that everybody's heard, then we have a chance for a different kind of peace, a shalom, a salam. And that's part of what we experienced when we were together, the three of us there. The last time was in 2014, in the last Gaza war. We created a camp which was called We Refuse to Be Enemies. And we were planting trees, we were taking care of a rabbit, we were doing meditation news, we were doing during the war, during the bombing. So there are things that people like us can do, and especially the Germans listening now, that you have a voice and a responsibility to hold justice, the word justice, to the Israeli government, and not be ashamed by guilt or anything like that from the Second World War. Me as a Jew, I want to encourage you, Germans, to speak up to the Israeli government. That has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It has to do with justice, because people's lives are the same wherever they're from. So this is my personal request to the German people, to speak up against the injustices of the Israeli government and the massacre that is going on right now. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. And I wonder somehow whether this might be a good point for, I think you brought a piece of music for us, Gabriel.
Oh, okay.
Would this be a good moment to hear?
Sure. Music is a good government measure, because it doesn't create competition, right? If you go in the melody, you're in. There's no... So it's a good government. So let's go for music. Yes.
Can you say us the text before? What are the words?
Yes. It says, when our voice chants only to be heard, when our song seeks praise for its success, then we know it isn't pure. It's not coming from the source of truth. our melody is not in harmony. When the old story is dying in our hands, when rebirth is nurturing our dance, as we step into the crack, trust uncertain reality, join creation's original band. Yearning to go deeper within, feel a part of everything, no expectation to be loved, yet loving as the river through the rocks. When transparency dresses our soul, when our heart pours gently through our throat, when our tune is vulnerable, the fences are breaking down within, then we are ready to sing. Can you hear the guitar okay? Yeah. Ya-da-da-dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai-dai. Ya-da-dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai-dai. Ya-da-dai-da-da-dai, dai-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. La-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. When our voice chants only to be heard, when our song seeks praise for its success, then we know it isn't pure. It's not coming from the source of truth. Our melody is not in harmony. When the old story's dying in our hands, when rebirth is nurturing our dance, as we step into the crack, trust uncertain reality, join creation's original band. Yearning to go deeper within, feel a part of everything, no expectation to be loved, yet loving as a river through the rocks. Ya-da-da-dai-dai-da-da-dai-da-dai. Ya-da-da-dai-dai-da-da-dai-da-dai. Ya-da-da-da-da-dai, dai-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. La-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ya-da-da-da-da-da, dai-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. When transparency dresses our soul, when our heart pours gently through our throat, when our tune is vulnerable, defenses are breaking down within, then we know we're ready to sing. When our tune is vulnerable, defenses are breaking down within, then we know we're ready to sing. When transparency dresses our soul, when our heart pours gently through our throat, when our tune is vulnerable, defenses are breaking down within, then we know we're ready to sing. When our tune is vulnerable, defenses are breaking down within, then we know we're ready to sing.
Thank you, Gabriel. Yeah, maybe we just allow the echo of the song to be with us for a moment. Yeah, and there's something in the last words, you know, about the vulnerability. Because there was even the shift in your voice from when you speak to when you sing. The vibration changes. Yeah, and the openness touches hearts. You know, I think many of our hearts are touched and our hearts feel softer now. Yeah, it brings me to a question that I have to all three of you. And I'm sure we'll want to hear more questions also coming from the community here. But, you know, I myself was actually in Israel, Palestine in the very early 90s for 6 months, living in rainbow camps where we had Palestinians and Jewish people come together and build peace, you know, and sing together around fires on full moons. And at that time, there were no walls in Palestine, in Israel, Palestine, you know, and we could walk through the country so much more freely. So I myself have experienced this 30 years of deterioration into the situation that is there today. And so my question to you, you know, because you've all done this peace work, nonviolent peace work, for so many years. And how do you remain vulnerable? How do you remain open? And how do you keep finding the next step to take in this work? How do you keep your hearts open? Yeah, maybe also what is maybe one insight from those many years of, you know, also something that has an insight that has grown in you over this time. And I think it, you know, because many of us, I'm sure, are active in different ways in the climate movement, in peace movements, in changing societies, and many of us have tasted failure also in trying to shift the big systems at this time. So I think it's very valuable to learn from you.
I feel like starting because I don't have an answer, but just feel like opening my mouth. I want to, in a way, add to your question is how do we keep our hearts open, and also how do we acknowledge and honor when our hearts are not. I think it's very important for all of us to, when the situation is bad and we feel hopeless, to actually be in the hopelessness, to honor the fact that this is what's happening now, and not to be judgmental of ourselves, not to put ourselves down, not to think that we have to be different than what is. In a situation that we are living in now, many activists are hopeless. We're hopeless, and this despair is what's available for us. And I feel, and this is part of the work of trauma work, is not to deny, not to suppress, not to disconnect from those feelings and emotions, and for us to come together as activists and say, this is how we feel, and to have the space. And I think this has been the most courageous thing for me, is to be able to hold space and have containers where peace activists, I've been working with a lot of Palestinian activists, but also Palestinians and Israelis coming together, not to cheer each other up, but to acknowledge that this is a moment of deep despair and hopelessness that we are living in, and to face it and to put it in front of us and to work with it and to find the right way of coming out of it, not by forcing it, not by pushing it, not by creating false hopes, but to say, what are we learning from this? And a lot of the teachings that we work with and do here is to also, how do we honor and learn from these experiences, but not to be motivated by them, that to have them present for us. And at the same time, and I say this for us and all of us here who are engaging in any activism, because the world is becoming a terrible place for everything we want to do. But to keep, as we say, our eye on the price. What is the vision that we want to create? And to see that, yes, I fully agree with what Sabine said. We have failed so far. We have miserably failed. And I could say that and I could smile because that teaches us not to repeat the ways we did things in the past and thinking they will make a difference. That there are new ways of learning how to deal with violence, how to deal with injustice, how to deal with conflict. For me, I'll just end by this saying the greatest test of being a peacemaker or engaging in peace work is not isolating ourselves from conflict and thinking, I cannot deal with this. I need to work on my inner peace and my inner processes and my inner healing. You want to test your inner peace work is in the midst of conflict. You want to practice being a light, it has to be in the midst of the deepest darkness. Being a light amongst all lights doesn't make you anything, but being a light in the midst of darkness is the real test and experience of peacemaking. And so for me, I think one of the big things that is emerging from the situation that we are in is new energy that's coming out, Palestinians and Israelis that are looking to a future and saying, yes, we're not going to do the peace work that Gabriel talked about, having our politicians sign a treaty, and to understand that all the treaties signed are completely embedded actually in fear and trauma, that we need to begin to engage in the seriousness of resistance and resiliency to achieve a peace that is a new vision for all of us, that is connected with nature, that is connected with earth, with water, with our indigenous roots to this land. That peace work is serious work. It's not just the fun of coming together, as Gabriel said, that we come together, we challenge each other, we yell at each other, we cry with each other, we envision with each other, and we move into action with each other. So to address the great force of evil that we are facing around the world today takes a lot of seriousness and dedication and love and heart that we need to come up with. It's easy to make a cup of water dark by pouring a little bit of ink in it. But if you want to clean that water, you know what you need to do? You need to pour a faucet and keep it running in that cup of water. And so it's easy to bring fear and hatred to individuals and communities. Just it takes a little bit to do that. Our calling is to pour unconditional love to Israelis, to Palestinians, and stand and say, what you're doing is wrong. It's okay. If you love somebody, you have to tell them what they're doing is wrong. It is not love if you're afraid of them, that they'll get upset with you if you see them doing something wrong and you don't say anything about it. That is your fear. And so I think for all of us, we're calling, yes, it's very important to say enough is enough. It is important to say stop, and coming from that heart of love and compassion that's overflowing with love and compassion, and not from a place of fear and anger towards them.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Sami. There were a few such strong images, especially this being a peacemaker means bringing the light into the darkness. and the image of the abundance of overflowing compassion and love that doesn't stop, that is needed. Yeah, and being very true to where we are in each moment. Yeah, thank you. I mean, that was beautiful to listen to, and I could feel you from I think we could all feel you from a very, very deep place. Yeah, I've also received the message that Charles has arrived. So I think we've all seen them, maybe, I don't know. So I would invite you to join us. You came and went. You came.
Yeah,
You
I'm here.
are. Hi, Charles.
Kosha, so good to see you.
Well, it's so good to see you. I have joy in my heart seeing you. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, and apologies for my having to come in late and probably leave again. I've got a lot going on here, but it's really great to see your faces and to hear Sami's words. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, and you're not alone. It currently happens to all US citizens who are joining European meetings. It's a very collective wave.
Well, I just have all kinds of stuff happening in my schedule that got messed up by this. But anyway, happy to be here. And you know, I'm not really sure. I haven't heard much of what was said, so I'm not really sure how to contribute. But if, you know, I could either just listen some more, or maybe, you know, if wing it if you want me to speak on any particular thing.
I think it would be actually really wonderful, because we just brought a question to Sabine and Gabriel and Sami, which was, how do you stay with vulnerability and open-heartedness? You've been working towards peace for decades, and the result is what we see. You know, I don't want to say that's the result, but you know, what we see today. So how do you manage to keep your heart open when, and this is a question to all of us, when we feel we are, you know, all of us could look at the world today and feel like we're failing in some way, right? So how do we keep our hearts open? So I would love to hear Sabine and Gabriel, and maybe you can keep it quite essential, you know, and then that we hear from you, Charles, whatever has been elicited in you by arriving here and listening a bit. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Charles. It's so great to see you all. And by listening to the song of Gabriel and then hearing Sami, I have to say, I felt, yes, we failed. This is true. But on the other side, if I would repeat my story, I think I would do exactly the same. And this for me is, I felt such a spirit of community. And I felt this miracle of being a pilgrim in a world which is driven by a system of fear, by a system which is still with the teaching that the strongest will win, with the teaching even stronger weapons, and that we dared to step out. And when Gabriel spoke, I was reminded when we had the Gaza war 2014, and I was here with the question, what can we do? Like now, what is ours? And then we decided to go there, and we did hear the bombs over our heads, and we were singing. We were together with settlers. We were together with Palestinians. We were sharing community on the deepest level we could. And this brought a crack into the worldviews and a heart-opening compassion towards love. And my feeling is that we are facing a system change at this time, which is so big, and we see that we cannot trust anymore in any big system, which is living from this kind of competition. And so we have to dare to be vulnerable, not even knowing whether we will come through or not, but trusting in this trust building, heart opening community movement. This is what I felt in this moment. And I felt Sami when we were in Colombia together with the peace community of San Josecito, where everyone faced someone in his family who were killed or murdered. And still they have this community belief, and they are still very much in a challenge, but they go on. They go on with this. There is something, if we listen to life, which can teach us another way of inhabiting this planet. And there I feel, beyond all what we failed, beyond all where we lost nearly hope, it is for me still that I see something from like Phoenix from the ashes is rising, where we leave worldview behind and come in this heart-to-heart connection of life. And I don't know where it will guide us, but we also know the prophecies from Hopis and many who say, stop to be attached to your worldview, open for what wants to come, and embracing the pain, embracing the fear, embracing the failure, but daring to go with truth and trust. This I feel nourishing when I listen to you, this inner decision. And I have to say, we have now soon equinox, and I will listen. My feeling is that it will not take a long time, and we will meet in Palestine, in Gaza, with common singing, with common keeping midwives to be midwives of a rebirthing of life. Because I feel humanity will fail or something very new will happen. This is my feeling. Yeah.
Thank you, Sabine. And again, let's just take a moment also to somehow allow your presence and your words to settle more deeply into us. Do we really dare to go beyond competition and step out of competition? And we can all take this question into our lives. It's very intimate, it's very close, this question. Yeah. Gabriel, what is there to add to your song?
Yeah, I think when each other are proofs of, our medicines to each other. So when we feel that shivers inside, that the defenses are breaking down within, and our tune is becoming vulnerable, it means there's a crack, a new seed is popping out of the shell, and we don't know terrain, and we join all of creation's band. That's those moments that I felt throughout my life are the moments of nourishment, and those are the moments of creating trust. And sometimes in one of those moments you have more trust than in 10 years of non-trust. So the power of that medicine can be not linear, and I find nourishment from those moments when the shivers and the tears of pain and justice and fear make a little blend with the joy protection and the joy management that we are called to do in this life, without shame, without guilt. And when those two, when the water and the fire blend inside, and you feel that life, that thriving life from friends that you can trust, then is when you get some impetus to say, okay, we lost this battle, we lost that battle, but the main thrive for life is still there, and it's just waiting for us to join for it to support us. And the more we can find those moments together, like my dear teacher used to say, the only way to get it together is together. So with the best parts of ourselves. So yeah, that's when I find my strength. thanks to people like you sometimes and others that are unseen, but I can feel them. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, Charles, that provides you with a really lovely carpet to step onto, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And you know, I think what I would say is quite similar actually to what Sabine and Gabriel brought up about community and you know, because for me, how do I keep my heart open? Well, for one thing, you're assuming that I do consistently keep my heart open, which is not necessarily the case. But secondly, you know, when I think about it, honestly, it's not something that I accomplish, keeping my heart open. It's something that others accomplish for me by they are the ones who keep my heart open. They're the ones who open my heart. And for me, it's witnessing the kindness, the courage, the generosity of others that kind of breaks the spell that I tend to slip into simply because it's ambient in our culture. And so much of what is said online, for example, it's all about division, it's all about hate, it's all about blame, it's all about, you know, is this side justified in committing atrocious acts of violence, or is that side justified in committing atrocious acts of violence? And so this to dispel that that drug, that intoxicating drug, where and it is like a drug because this us versus them thinking, when you align on the side of right and the side of good, and everybody tells you, yes, you are on the side of right and the side of good, it gives you kind of like a hit, kind of a high. And it meets temporarily anyway, a very deep need for acceptance, for belonging, for self-acceptance. So I could also say, you know, but then you need more and more and more because it's coming from the outside. So I would also say that another thing that makes me less susceptible to the drug, to the poison of blame, justification, and so forth, you know, is all of the love that I receive. And practically, this has a very practical purpose, which means that the more we are able, like, even if I can't keep my heart open, I can help others open their hearts, and they can help me open my heart. And how do I do that? Well, when I have been opened, then I can pass that forth through words or actions of peace, courage, generosity, and kindness. And, you know, I heard Sami saying earlier, like, you know, it's relatively easy to do that from my chair here, interjecting something into, I don't know, a comment thread or into my writing, that where I'm offering an alternative to us versus them. But when you're actually facing violence or injustice, you know, when your face is being ground into the dirt, it's a lot harder. But those moments are also potentially way more powerful. In those moments when it's really hard, and you know, it can be hard even if your life isn't in danger. The temptation is so strong. But in those moments when it's the hardest, that is when the choice to respond with love, in peace, in genuine goodwill, rather than the secret hope that you're going to get what you deserve. In those moments, that choice issues forth as a very powerful prayer, because it is a declaration of what the human being is in these circumstances. The way you are in these circumstances is a declaration of what the human being is in these circumstances. And so it sends forth an invisible ripple that that affects even the people in power, or who we think are in power, and who believe they are in power to make a similar choice. And maybe their choice isn't full on forgiveness, but maybe it's a little bit of a restraint. You know, restraint is the little cousin of forgiveness. Forgiveness says, even though I have reason to hate you and punish you, I forgive you. I do not wish you ill. I will not harm you in return. Restraint says, I'll harm you a little less. And who knows what the situation in Gaza would be right now if it were not for all of the forgiveness and all of the peace and all of the love that people have been enacting all over the world that, you know, and I'm just saying, as bad as it is, it could be worse. And, you know, that's not to make it acceptable. You know, this is something that is, that like literally every day, you know, seeing the anguish and the horror come through my channels of information. But I guess I'll just say, you know, we all have like any act of forgiveness, any act of restraint is in solidarity with the people who are suffering the most. And that doesn't mean that you should not do more direct things to help the people of Gaza. But it's to recognize that none of our choices are futile, that nothing we do is in vain. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Thank you for slotting your voice into this space. And there's something that you touch on, you know, Sabine, you were speaking about the prophecies, and there is, in many of the prophecies, a part of it is about the darkness that needs to deepen before the light can come back, which is also part of our yearly rhythm, right? We see it in nature, that the darkness needs to deepen before the light comes back. And I love what you just said, Charles, that none of our actions are futile. And, you know, what you also said in so many voices is that true love blossoms in the most difficult places, not, you know, that love is when we bring it to the difficult places, not the places where it's easy to love, but also the places where it's difficult to love. And I think what would be wonderful for us now is just to have a few minutes of opening the chat and just seeing where this lands, you know, this community, this collective. And I want to thank you all who've been here, listening, witnessing, opening, feeling your heart become vulnerable, less vulnerable, moving through this with us. Yeah, maybe you could find just a word that expresses what is most alive in you now. What has been touched in you? Yeah, so I would really love just a word about what is most alive in you now, what has been touched. What has been touched in you? And thank you, Christian, and thank you to Jea, who also shared longer. Tenderness, and again, tenderness in German, Zartheit, connection, staying vulnerable. Yeah, connectedness, closeness. Diluting the darkness with love is never futile. I'm very deeply touched. Dankbarkeit, thankfulness. Open my heart in a few moments, smile, pain breathing through, hope in the midst of hopelessness, midwives. Yeah, thank you so much. It just, all your words opened up my heart and I could finally cry. I feel that, Josephine. Never give up. Courage, shalom, as the meaning of wholeness means healing. Yeah. Yeah, and birthing within difficulty. Keeping the heart open for the pain. Hopefulness for vulnerability. Yeah, beautiful. So just, I don't know, I'm touched about the echo, mourning our losses. Darkness paradoxically helps love to grow even more. Yeah, and an appeal for a global peace project from Jia. Yeah, so I know that our time is drawing to a close, and there's gratitude for your music, Gabriel, and I think also for Tim's music from the beginning, and I hope we'll hear from Tim again at the end. Yeah, but I think we're at that time where it would be lovely to just hear some, this is the response from this beautiful community. So I feel touched. I came here and we started off by listening to a story about the death of a 14-year-old boy today. Yeah, and feeling this echo from this community is definitely medicine for my heart right now. Something about it is medicine. Yeah, and I would like to just have a completion circle here amongst the five of us, where it would be, maybe Martin will join us again, but that it would be wonderful to hear from you. Last words of wisdom or minimal words of vulnerability, whatever is true for you right now. And yeah, who would be willing to start us off? Gabriel, I think maybe we start with you right now. We have 10 more minutes, so there's like a minute or two for you to just share a few last words to complete for today.
Yeah, maybe to identify with the messenger and get more into the message. So if the message is peace and justice, and that they have to go together always, like how our father Abraham, our ancestor, got it from his teacher in Jerusalem, from the first king of Jerusalem, Melchizedek. So the teaching goes that you cannot have only justice or only peace. You need both, and they cannot separate. It's like truth and love. And instead of identifying with the messenger, I have the message and I have to protect my messenger status, just to try and become a member of the message with all our parts of our bodies and souls and relationships. So that would be the message. Yes, that's what I can share with you. Justice and peace together, peace, love and truth together, never separate, never separate.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. Shalom and salam. Thank you. Yeah, who would like to go next? Sami, do you feel... You and Gabriel really look like brothers, right? Like you come from the same family.
We do, actually.
Sami.
Yeah, well, what's coming to me is just to build also on what my brother Gabriel shared. My invitation is for people to, when they see any situation of injustice, when they see any situation of violence, of racism, hatred, sexism, whatever it may be, something that puts down our human family as a collective, to really look deep and ask, why am I not doing anything about it? What is my fear? What is my hesitation? What will I lose if I engage? And to begin to address these issues so that we could also free ourselves from what holds us back to create the world that we all actually believe is possible to create and to live in. I think that this hesitation of many of us to stand up and say enough is enough, to say stop it, to say we cannot allow this to continue, it gives a green light to those who want to commit violence to continue to do so. And so for me, this has been an amazing night and an amazing spirit that has just existed this whole night of love and listening and compassion for each other. And then for me, I want to also build on it and say, let's go into action. The world needs us. It needs people like us. Even my dog is barking and saying, Yalla, come on, do it. Even the animals are calling us for it. And so, yeah, let's not remain silent. We could all do a small part in changing the situation that we are living in. So check the hesitation, check the fear, and then heal it, address it. And it's okay. The next generation needs to thank us for what we did, not blame us. We've blamed enough generations in the past. It's time for the next generation to say thank you for standing up for us. So thank you.
Ah, that's a beautiful dream. Dream of a next generation thanking us. Thank you, Sami. Yeah, Sabine or Charles, who feels...
I can go. I'm very much in the line like Sami spoke. Let's step out of silence. Let's meet the real silence, the real emptiness. Also, I feel to embrace darkness as beauty of life. We so often make darkness as evil and light as good, stepping out of this polarization. And then I see like a network of hope, like a spider net around the world, which is not by fighting against systems, but by daring to go over borders, to go over limits, to find trust into life, and to remember that we are members of a much bigger universe. And there we will find guidance. This is my trust. This is my hope. We all will die. Let's use our lifetime in the wisest way of compassion and heartful commitment for building communities of trust. Thank you. I love you all so much. It's great to be with you. And I could stay with you 2 weeks now and then ask ourselves, what is ours now? Where we go together in togetherness. Thank you.
Ah, thank you, Sabine. Yeah, and I just want to take a moment also to thank the wisdom of eldership. You know, I feel like we live in a society where often eldership is not honored as deeply, and I just feel the wisdom of eldership. you know, so thank you. Charles.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Sami's invocation of let's make the next generation, future generations thank us instead of blame us. I think if they're going to thank us for something, the most profound thing is that when it seemed hopeless, we didn't give up. When it looked like nothing was going to bring peace to the world, when it looked like nothing was going to bring healing to the world, when it looked like anything that you or I could do would be not enough, would be futile, still we did it because we trusted something else than what the mind told us is possible. And that trust comes from an intuitive recognition that the world does not work as we have been told it does. And in fact, the consciousness of peace also understands that the world does not work and that the human being is not what we have been told the human being is. Because when we stand for peace and when we speak peace, we are speaking to a part of the human being that conventional narratives tend to underestimate, if not ignore. And so, yeah, I would just finally say that the moment, in this evolution, that the situation in Palestine now has brought right into our face a global situation that has been simmering for a long time. And now it's much harder to ignore it. And that means that the time to speak has come for many people for whom it had not yet been time because they didn't see, they didn't know. And I've been very much inquiring, what is mine to say and when is it time to say it? Because some of the things I've spoken out about have only seemed like they've made the division worse, And so I look, where was I speaking from? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Thank you very much. And somehow the image that has grown in me throughout this call, we've been exploring a lot also in the past years, the mycelium of mushrooms growing under the earth. And somehow this image that has grown in me, listening to all of you, is like when we move from the surface where the divisions are so strong to the nervous system mycelium of humanity, which we can feel here now between us, where there's connectedness and vulnerability. And just to say that there is that I have a trust and a belief in this web of vulnerability and openness and connectedness that we experienced here tonight, that is growing below and above the surface of what we're experiencing. And that I think that, as others have also said, that many seeds of the work are seeding this openness and vulnerability. Yeah, I want to thank you for this evening. To me, it felt like a place where what we spoke about also took place, that we touched on darkness and there was a moment of grace entering into the space between us. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, I will hand it back to Martin, who invited us here.
No words. Thank you. Thank you, Kosha, for creating this space, stepping into this role and holding this in such a beautiful way. Thank you, Sabine, for co-creating this or co-sourcing this whole event. And Sami and Gabriel, I cannot say how much I have respect and admiration for how you hold light within darkness. Yes, and I'll in the chat now, I'll post a link where you are all who have been with us invited to send donations to, and we will hand these donations to Gabriel and Sami to either use it or to pass it on to people who need it there and or initiatives which are needed in their region. Yes. So thank you.
And thank you to the whole team, and thank you to you all for being here, and Charles for the short visit in and out. It was beautiful to touch. Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you to you and the whole team.
Thanks for the translators and all the technicians who are helping in the background.
I want to thank Ishmael and Isaac for reuniting at the grave of Abraham to bury him in the Khalil in Hebron, and hope we will join them one day all together there in the grave of Abraham in one circle.
Thank you. So now we'll have Tim again to finish this evening in a non-verbal way, just with sound and music. Thank you very much, and yeah, peace. Shalom. Danke, Tim. Danke euch allen, dass wir diesen Abend gemeinsam verbracht haben. Alles Liebe.